Hi guys, it's Katie here again from BellaCreativa. I'm back today with another project. This one's a little bit different than usual for me. I find a lot of my projects involve me doing a lot of measuring and very precise dimensions, and I'm not using my creativity necessarily in the way that I would want to. So I've decided to make myself an art journal, and I'm hoping that I can keep it up throughout the year, although I am fairly notorious for starting art journals and never finishing them. But here I am just making some paper to cover my art journal, and I'm using butcher's paper, or packing paper we call it in Australia, although I think it might be called newsprint paper in other places. Anyway, it's really thin paper, which is great because you can scrunch it up and get a sort of a tissue paper effect with it, but it's also strong enough that it can hold a bit of paint. The reason I'm using my credit card though is because I do want to keep my layers of paint quite thin, and I also want them to be kind of random. So I'm adding some gesso here now. The other colours that I've used are Lavender and Elderberry by Global Colours, and the brown, which is I really like. It's sort of translucent. That is called Espresso by J Burrows. My paints are probably generally only available in Australia, and you should just use whatever you've got, which is my plan for this year, is to try and use some stuff that I already have. So I'm just scraping on some paint. This is going back to between the lavender and the gesso, and then I think I'm going to spray it with a bit of water here, and then flip the paper over, and that water, the paint that's sitting under that water will come off and give me a sort of more mottled look. And then I'm just going to give it a quick dry once I've smushed it. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a quick dry with my heat gun now. And now that it's dry, I don't like it, I'm going to screw it up and throw it away. No, it is a hot mess, but I did decide that I wanted it to have this sort of crinkled look to it. So I do keep screwing it up and getting some sort of wrinkly looks to it. I've done it a few times, and then I've decided to put a bit of spray colour on here. So this one here is Rose Gold by Kaisercraft. I wasn't a fan of it because it just looks kind of orange to me, but I persevered because it was there. And I also added a bit of ground espresso, distress spray stain, and then I'm just putting some water on to get it to move around a bit, and then I'll smush it all together, get that colour to move around a bit, and very technical as you can see. And then I'm just going to smush some of that off on my drop sheet as well before I give that a little bit of a dry. So once that's dry, I've decided to add a little bit more colour again. So I'm going back with those with that dark pink elderberry colour, and also a bit of gesso. And so I've done this side, and I'll flip it over and do the other side as well in a minute. And again, I'm using the credit card just to keep my layers quite light before I dry it off again. So I've smushed that paint around, and oh, I'm screwing it up again. All right, wow, that was pretty game, because that's when the paper really likes to stick to itself and rip. I'm just squashing it again and getting some of that excess paint off and seeing what interesting effect I can get before I dry it off again. Okay, so quick sip of the coffee, screw it up again, and after I've screwed it up a billion times, there are a couple of holes in it. So I'm just going to go flip it over, grab my masking tape and fix up some of those holes that I've created from all of that paper and water and ink and screwing it up. So So once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to put this aside to dry. I can still use this paper even with that masking tape on the back, so I'm happy with that. Screw it up one more time and then put it aside, and going to start working on the actual book itself. Okay, so while my paper is just drying off, I'm going to start making my cover now. I'm using these orange cardstock pieces as my template, which I am cutting out right now of this chipboard that I have. So the chipboard is really thick, and that's why I chose to use the template instead of trying to cut it on my Cricut. So I've cut all those pieces out now for my front and back cover and the spine, and I'm just going to use this masking tape to stick it together, leaving a little gap. So yeah, the SVGs that I use, that I cut out of the orange cardstock, are available in my Facebook group. It's called BellaCreativa Divas. So if you would like to make your own art journal, you can go and grab the SVGs if you have an electronic cutting machine, and make one yourself. As well as the covers, they also have templates for the holes for the signatures, and I just find that using a template just makes it that much easier. I only have to measure once, cut out my SVG. Well, you won't even need to measure because I've done it for you. And I can use it again and again, and of course I can resize it. So now that I've made my cover, I have decided I wanted to do a sort of an embossed look on the front and spine of my art journal. So this is a design that I got from Cricut Design Space. It's just a flourish, and I've cut it out 3 times out of cardstock, and I've just used coloured cardstock that I don't really love, which is yellow and orange. And now I'm just measuring to see where I'm going to put it and how all those pieces go together, because I can't really remember. And so then once I'm happy with that, I'll glue those pieces down on the front cover and also on the spine. So those pieces are all glued down now. I can't remember if I said, but I cut each of those out 3 times and layered it together for a bit of thickness. So now I'm just going around with some PVA glue and a paintbrush, and I'm just really smushing that paint in around the crevices of that design, so that my paper sticks in there really nicely. So now here comes my hot mess paper, and I'm just going to pop it over the top. I've just flipped it over to make sure that I've got enough of an edge there that I can fold over. So I'm just going to use another paintbrush now to really get into those little crevices and make sure that that design is really raised and quite obvious. It doesn't look obvious here because of the paper, but it does. You can see it in the end. So then once I've done that around the embossed design, I'll go here and I'm putting glue down around the rest, and then I'm going to stick that paper down, and I'm trying to keep some of those wrinkles that I put in the paper there so that I have that sort of wrinkly effect. And I'll just go and do that all the way around, as well as fold over the edges to give it a neat finish. Okay, so it's all covered now, but you still can't really see that embossed design, so I'm getting some of that espresso paint and my paintbrush. I'm just going to go all the way around my little design here, my little raised embossed design, to give it a little bit of difference in colour. And so I've done that, and I'm just going around the edges now with a baby wipe just to smooth out those obvious lines around the edge before I do the same all the way around my book as well. So I've got that espresso paint on the raised embossed sections as well as around the edge of my book cover. And now I have got some Rub and Buff in European Gold, and I'm just putting that over that embossed design. So I like the effect of the Rub and Buff, but it's really difficult to get off once you put it on. So I did spend quite a bit of time trying to get it off the places where I put it, which I then decided I didn't want. But it definitely helps bring that design up. Okay, time to put the signatures in. So I have 5 signatures and they are A3 sized, and I am just about to put some holes in there. So I have this SVG that comes with the art journal, SVGs that you can grab from my Facebook page, and it just helps you to figure out where you're going to put the holes for each signature. So I'm going to do that with all 5 of my signatures, and then they are ready to go in. Now I'm going to do the spine section that I am going to attach my signatures to. So this orange piece here is also comes with the SVGs, and it again is just a template for where to poke your holes in for each of your signatures. So I'm just going to go ahead and poke them in. So the spine piece itself is 2 layers of cardstock, and then I have also put a layer of that sort of cheesecloth material over the top of it. Right here I am covering the inside of my art journal covers because it looks a bit messy. So I'm just measuring a piece to cover my spine, and then I'm going to cover my spine and both the inside front cover and back cover. So this is just some drawing weight paper, which I think is probably about 120 GSM if I remember correctly, and it's just going to give me a nice neat finish. So one of the last things to do is to sew my signature onto the spine and then put it into my book covers. I'm using some white embroidery floss, and I'm just doing a simple 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I want the knots to be on the outside of my spine, so I'm starting in the middle on the outside and going inside my cover, my signature, and then going to the top, coming outside before going to the bottom, coming back inside, and then through the middle from the inside of my signature to the outside of my spine, and then I'm just going to tie it in a knot, and I'm going to do that for all 5 of my signatures. And there's the first one. So I'm just checking to make sure they fit, which probably would have been a good idea to do it at the beginning. I'm just trimming off the tops of that fabric now before I cut the bits. Yeah, I need to cut those little dangly pieces off. And then I'm going to put some glue on my spine, and then center it to the spine of my book cover and attach it with the glue. I'm just going to line it up on there, and then I will just make sure that the spine in between each one of my signatures is really firmly attached, which I'm just doing here, and then I will attach those fabric pieces there on the inside covers to help hold my signatures into place. Then the only other thing that I did was add some brass corner pieces to the corners of my art journal, and it's all done and ready for me to start creating. So don't forget, if you'd like to make your own and you'd like to use the templates that I've made as SVGs, you can pick those up from my Facebook group, which is called BellaCreativa Divas, and I'm hoping that as I go along I will have some other freebie SVGs that I might use in my art journal and also make available to you guys. So thanks very much for watching. This little last tiny section is me trying to attach the corners to my book, but it took forever, so I'm saving you from having to watch it. But thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.